Nick Hazen here, just doing an afternoon dog walk for a change actually. I'm out on the peninsula, you can see it's a fab day, a few sailing boats out there, and I've been thinking a lot about some of the questions I get asked by family offices, and we have a significant network of families, and they're asking us, where are the investment opportunities? So let's baseline this a little bit. So we have shrinking markets, we have inflation, we have global supply chain issues still. We're backed up from COVID. We have a conflict in the middle of Europe, and we've got another one pending, potentially in the China Sea. There was an interesting announcement today, wasn't there, where the Chinese snubbed Boeing with the world's biggest airline order going to Airbus, which is very interesting. And I think there is a realignment, isn't there, of geopolitics at the moment, and I think some of the organisations like the World Economic Forum, the UN, and a few others have been found out, really, haven't they? And so nevertheless, the families are sort of, they're thinking about what to do next. So a lot of them are moving to cash. And I guess that's fairly typical, because if you think about the longevity of a family, the succession planning, their bedrock has always been real estate. And they've always had a 25, 50, 100-year plan. So therefore, there's an opportunity to increase their wealth, of course, isn't there, as they go bargain hunting. And there are good deals to be had at the bottom of the market. Goodness knows when we'll get there, maybe next year. But there is a storm coming, and capital markets are not coping. Central banks have been found out yet again. The printing presses are running. There's a challenger now to the stability of global financial markets, with a number of currencies being backed and pegged to assets, to gold. And what that means is that the US dollar, which has lost, 96% of its value in the last goodness knows how many years, is shrinking in value and shrinking in appeal. And so where do you go next? So here's a couple of opportunities that people don't talk about. So as capital markets shrink, as the supply chain gets stressed, companies are already starting to cut back on expenses. They're starting to lay off expensive people, or expensive non-productive people, and they're starting to tighten their belts, believing that we're in for a few years of rough water. Now, what does that mean? It means that in the same way that the airline market, for example, were stressed with COVID, what came out of that is that they realised that their business model doesn't work anymore, and it forced them to go through a digital transformation. And they're still doing it, and they're stuck in what I would call a Web 2 past, which is always after the event. And they collect loads of data. They still don't really know much about the customer. They collect data and it's processed, and they plan their next year's marketing on historical data. It doesn't work anymore. You have to be plugged in. Web3, real-time analyzer of data. You have to incentivize people to share their data. You have to allow them to control it and allow them to earn and spend rewards in terms of loyalty programs, for example, as they go. So airlines are going to be squeezed again, and we've seen the chaos at airports, and by and large their business model is all wrong. But they're not alone. Every industry is going to have a big squeeze in the next 12, 24 months. So the opportunity are the companies that do have a Web3 solution that can drag screaming and kicking the Web3, the Web 2 world of centralized databases, centralized infrastructure, archaic, very often Web 1 legacy infrastructure. And there are a load of industries that are going to be forced to consider that. So the businesses that offer a new solution to pull these industries across then they're going to be a good bet, because you're laying down a new infrastructure, a new industry, and it's a good place to store your cash, because you can get some bargains, you can get in early. And if you're laying down new infrastructure, then you're there at the beginning, and infrastructure companies generally do quite well, don't they? Especially if you're thinking the historic infrastructure. Excuse me. So where else? Well, like my dogs and myself, we're not getting any younger, and we're living longer, but people are still getting sick, they're still getting ill. And life sciences, biotech, medtech, whatever you want to call it, things involving the human condition, whether looking after us in our old age, being more efficient in diagnosis, trying to work on prevention. So these are all the aspects, and of course a lot of that is harnessing and looking at the data. And I've just seen a tall ship, actually. There you go, big tall ship. Just zoom in on it. Can't. And harnessing the data, and it gives you massive insight. And let's not forget, synthetic biology and medtech has been accelerating beyond Moore's law for the last couple of decades. And yeah, in a rising and a falling market, people need to be looked after, and people get ill, and people are looking for hospitals. The whole medical profession are looking for means of focusing on prevention, cutting costs, and becoming more efficient, getting that deep insight. So there's two immediate things for you. And we've got a lot of families that are also looking at co-investing. Of course, some families prefer to lead, they prefer to take the lion's share, they prefer to do their own thing, especially families that are tied to a private equity fund that they may have seeded or own or very close to. But we're also seeing there's a lot more collaboration, a lot more sharing of deal flow, and I guess in a sense it's seen as shared risk, isn't it? So lots of things going on. There is lots of opportunity out there. It is tricky to navigate. It's not necessarily all doom and gloom, and there is money to be made. And I know the temptation is to get your war chest ready for the real estate dip, to buy in, which has served the families well for a long time, of course. But don't forget the other stuff. Some good stuff going on, and deep tech in particular, that's going to produce more unicorns in the next decade than any other sector. Talk soon.